Hello and welcome back again. In the previous segments of this presentation, we talked about a lot of the difficulties that are faced by states attempting to undergo a transition to democracy. Um, in, uh, in this concluding section, I would like to offer some suggestions about how we might understand some of these difficulties and whether maybe the problem is that we've postulated all of this issue of transition to democracy in the wrong frame and that we don't really understand what's going on. So let me try to put it this way. A prediction was popularly offered around 1989 that all of the states in the world would eventually become liberal democracies. The Cold War was viewed as a conflict of worldviews in which one worldview won, and this victory would eventually be realized. This prediction turned out to be wrong. This shouldn't surprise anybody. Predictions that are based on hypotheses about historical inevitability will generally turn out to be wrong. What happened instead? Well, in the sections that we've gone over before in this presentation, we discussed some of the obstacles to constructing and consolidating democratic systems. There's something wrong with every one of these explanations, though. Every one of them postulates the result that was attained as some kind of failure, as some sort of way of falling short of a goal that was declared. This is what accounts for the popular use of misleading terms like backsliding. Well, what if that is not what is at stake? What if the states in the region, and possibly all the states in the world, are not falling short of a goal that has been postulated, but instead have been engaged in the construction of something else? What could that something else be? Now, let me offer a set of possibilities for what might be being constructed instead of liberal democratic orders in the region and possibly in the world. First, it is possible that what we are seeing is the construction of long-term populist orders that are based on an idea of stability but are fundamentally at their hearts unstable. What we could argue is that democracy is undermined by a number of factors, among them popular dissatisfaction, some of which is based on things like ethnocentrism, or rejection of authority, and that this is the case not only in so-called transitional states, but also in established democratic states. It's something that we can see with the rise of certain types of parties, very visibly in states like the United States and the United Kingdom, probably also the case in most other European political communities. A second possibility is that we may be seeing the development of a type of state that is distinct from the organized bureaucratic state that we became accustomed to seeing emerging ever since the end of the 19th century, but instead seeing states that are based on informal networks which are organized or controlled by political parties and access to political parties. And in these sorts of states, ideology is unimportant. Ideology is flexible. Formal resolutions, what's written in law, may not be important because it doesn't describe what happens in actual social life on the ground. What is important in these sorts of states is access to networks that operate in parallel to and sometimes in combination with established systems of order, and in particular political parties which act as gatekeepers to a variety of social benefits ranging from education and employment and healthcare to meeting everyday needs and gaining permissions. A related possibility, the third one on the list here, is that what we may be seeing develop is a system of neo-patrimonialism in which locally grounded elites are supported by systems in place designed to enhance and cement and consolidate their local power. So the argument here is that a new power structure emerged out of the fall of communism that is expressed by access to advantageous positions in economics and advantageous positions in politics, and the violence that followed created some interesting variants on this new system that developed. And the system that developed has as its goal to maintain its position, regardless of ideology, regardless of what happens globally, but for its own sake. And it's possible that this could be happening in parallel with the fourth possibility on the list, that what we are seeing is the development in the region of a kind of de-hegemonized semi-peripheral clientelism, in which we're seeing the West, if not weakening, at least no longer able to hold the monopolistic position on power in the region that it held as short a time ago as 20 years. Competitors are emerging that are becoming strong, but are not yet very strong, yet have the capacity to be influential. And local elites, in order to maintain their positions, will seek to develop and maintain profitable relations with a variety of outside actors without regard to who they are. So these are some possibilities of what might be developing instead of what we thought of as the ideal of liberal democracy, and possibly instead of what's implied by the term backsliding, a restoration of the old system in the region. This list is not exhaustive. The last option on the list is insert your own alternative here. We can develop, and possibly we will develop in discussion, further suggestions as to what might be developing. What does this mean for the future? Well, you're not going to be satisfied by the conclusion that I offer. But that is that we don't know what's going to happen in the future. The world is loosely structured by uncertainty and indeterminacy, and states that are relatively less powerful on the global level, like the states in the region that we're looking at, might not reach consolidated resolutions, might constantly be in a state of change. And it's possible that this category that was offered as a critique of the fixed idea of transition, the idea of permanent transition, could be more descriptive than we think. But we'll talk about all of this and develop the ideas that have been offered here in some more detail when we meet for our discussion. I'll see you on Monday.